nationwide project looking toward the future, which can be achieved through the spirit of cooperation. This is Bendaria for Infowars.com.
Leading a frontal assault on the Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Monday, May 15th, 2017. Here are our top stories.
Tonight, social justice warriors and communists unite against Trump as they take to the streets of Austin, Texas, and march for open borders. Meanwhile, employment in America continues to rise as illegal immigration falls. Then, what does the ransomware tell us about our vulnerable infrastructure? Well, it is a weaponized system that can be used to frame or target anybody. All that plus the NSA and the IRS finally come out of the closet. That's up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
The reason Infowars Life has 5-star ratings on major third-party sites is because I want products I'm going to use for my family. I take this, my family takes this, and then it funds the operation with the most hardcore, truthful information you're going to find anywhere. So what you find in our news is the same thing you find in our products at InfowarsLife.com.
If I ever forget to take them, I have a noticeable difference. I don't feel good. The nascent iodine is one of the ones that was life-changing for me.
Yeah, I actually have just run out of my super female. I had a few bottles at my house, and I've been taking it again, hitting the gym once again. Very exciting, feeling great, looking good. So, and I know my hair is luxurious once again. So obviously the super female is amazing. I love it.
Nascent iodine is essential. Survival Shield X2. If there's one product that I would say is life-changing that I would suggest, it's Nascent iodine Survival Shield X2. It's got a 5-star rating.
It's a win-win. InfowarsLife.com.
Today, the Supreme Court declined to hear the appeal of a lower court case that overturned North Carolina's voter ID laws. And this is very important. I come from North Carolina. I know how the voting works there. I've voted there many times. You walk up to the rolls, and they simply ask you for a name and address. So anybody can do this by going through the phone book. You don't have to present a photo ID of anything. It's not difficult to get a photo ID. You have to have a photo ID to cash a check, to fly on a plane, but not to vote in an election. And it was interesting to see what the rationale for this was. Of course, they're saying the Supreme Court today refused to hear North Carolina's appeal of a lower court decision to strike down its voter ID law, effectively killing the law. They will be back. They're not going to let this stand. But then they say that they would not hear it because they upheld the lower court's decision that said it targeted black voters, quote, with almost surgical precision. Seriously? If you were targeting black voters with surgical precision, this would be very insulting. Let's look at what the lower court said. They said the law required voters to present an approved form of photo ID before casting a valid ballot. That targets black voters with surgical precision. They can't or don't have any photo ID. That's absurd. Next one. Reduce the early voting period from 17 to 10 days. So what are they saying here? That black people can't vote within a 10-day period, but other people can? Then they go on to say it eliminated out-of-precinct voting. It eliminated same-day registration of voting. It eliminated pre-registration by 16-year-olds. So Basically what they're saying is that black people can't take photo IDs, they can't find where the polling places are, and they can't vote on the days of the election. The U.S. government knew how to run an election when they did it in Iraq. They were concerned that there might be voters coming across the border from other countries voting, but they made sure they had the election on the same day. They had paper ballots. They painted people's thumbs purple, if you remember when they had that election. That's precisely what the Democrats don't want to have. What this did was this precisely targeted the means of skirting an election. And I told you how it's done in North Carolina. And I've mentioned before that a friend of my brother-in-law's called him and said, I went to vote and they told me that I had already voted. And my mother had already voted, even though she's dead. Now, that was not reported to the Election Commission. They said nothing like that ever happens. It does happen. People don't report it because they know that you're not going to do anything about it. But Rand Paul points out what the real Jim Crow laws are. And he talked about Attorney General Jeff Sessions' plans on reviving aspects of the drug war that even Obama did not do. And of course, this is bringing back mandatory minimums and going after nonviolent first-time offenders just based on the quantity of marijuana that you have, for example. I have to say, this is the very definition of insanity, that we would go for 46 years doing this insane war on drugs and thinking that by doing the same stuff, we're going to get different results. We've gotten just the opposite results of what we wanted to have. We've had more people and more concentrated forms of the drugs appear, as well as organized crime that has soared, as we see coming across the border. That is the real problem with what's coming across the border. That is what's created the Sinaloa cartel, the Zetas, the MS-13. They have grown up on the war on drugs. Prohibition is the mother's milk to organizations like that, just like it was to Al Capone. But let's take a look at what Rand Paul said. He said this is an op-ed piece, actually, that he wrote on CNN today. And Rand Paul said the Attorney General on Friday made an unfortunate announcement that will impact the lives of millions of Americans. He issued new instructions for prosecutors to charge suspects with the most serious provable offenses, quote, those that carry the most substantial guideline sentences, including mandatory minimum sentences. Well, first of all, this is going to fill up our jails. We know what happened when Ronald Reagan and his attorney general did this. They started filling up jails with nonviolent offenders. They couldn't build the new jail cells quickly enough, and they were releasing violent offenders into the streets so they could fill up these mandatory minimums. Then, going further, he says mandatory minimum sentences have unfairly, disproportionately incarcerated a generation of minorities. As Rand Paul said, Eric Holder refrained from seeking longer sentences for non-violent drug offenders. He said, I agree with him, still do. In fact, he was the author of a bipartisan bill with Senator Leahy to change the law on the matter. He said, until we pass that bill, though, the discretion on enforcement and how it affects the lives of many young drug offenders lies with the current attorney general. He said we should be treating this for what it is, a public health crisis. It's a public health crisis. It's a medical issue. It is a psychological issue. It is a spiritual issue, but it will not be solved by law enforcement. Trying to solve this by law enforcement and going for the end users, which they never did during alcohol prohibition. And of course, we've talked about how this is an agenda that was created by the United Nations 10 years before Richard Nixon declared the war on drugs and copied their agenda verbatim. Schedule by schedule, drug by drug. This is a UN agenda. This is unconstitutional. There's no constitutional amendment like there was to prohibit alcohol, but this is what he goes on to say. This is where the real connection to voting ID goes. He said, if I told you that 1 out of 3 African-American males is forbidden by law from voting, you might think I was talking about Jim Crow 50 years ago. Yet today, 1/3 of African-American males are still prevented from voting, primarily because of the war on drugs. So they want to make a big deal out of voter ID. Why? Because the Democrats want to have the opportunity to have fraud. They want people to be able to vote early, vote often, vote without identification. But if they really cared about minorities and people who lose their rights to own guns, people who lose their rights to vote, people who are locked up at our expense, if we're not suffering from it in our family, we're seeing other families torn apart, and then we are given the bill to lock these people up, to destroy their lives. And when they get out of jail and they tell people that they've been convicted for a drug felony, it makes it difficult for them to get a job. That is what the war on drugs is doing to us. It's absolutely insane. And to keep repeating this process, to bring this up just when we were moving in the opposite direction is absolutely wrong. I think Jeff Sessions is a man of integrity, but I think is absolutely wrong on this issue. Now, let's take a look at the IRS and the NSA. They're now being used as open political weapons. We've known this for a while. We saw the way the IRS was coming after the Tea Party groups, for example, doing it openly, doing things that Nixon was impeached for, and yet nothing happened. And today we had some interesting developments on that, but let's take a look first at the NSA. Yesterday we had James Clapper going on CNN, and now they are hailing him as a savior of democracy. We have this op-ed piece from CNN saying, James Clapper, defending democracy from Trump. And who is this written by? Well, this is written by Juliette Kayyem. She's CNN's national security analyst. She wrote a book, Security Mom, an unclassified guide to protecting our homeland and your home. Okay, so, and she used to be an assistant secretary for Homeland Security under Obama. So no political agenda there, no apologist for the police state, for the surveillance state. But she paints James Clapper as this reluctant warrior who retired. You know, he was fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, but he reluctantly came back. Really, this guy is the lying political hack who is prying into our lives and trying to overthrow our democracy. And he talks about how Trump is trying to overthrow our democracy. This is what she said last week when he testified before the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee. James Clapper, former director of national intelligence, had the disposition of someone who looked like he'd retired for a reason and planned to go straight back. He made his points answered by many and perhaps hoped that this would be the end of his contribution to the Trump-Russia story, but he just had to come back. And so what did he say? Let's listen to this back and forth first. And let's put this in context. Let's remember who James Clapper is. Remember that this is a guy who was asked by Senator Ron Wyden whether or not the NSA and other intelligence services were spying without warrants on the American people. And this is what he said at the time.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
Yeah, that guy is the worst liar ever. And the worst poker player
perhaps.
ever, too. He says, no, sir, no, sir. He can't even look him in the eye when he says that lie. And interestingly enough, I've seen Michael Hayden talk about this and just heap scorn, not on James Clapper for spying unconstitutionally on Americans and breaking the law, not on James Clapper for lying to the American people, and it came back and bit him really big with the Ed Snowden releases, which happened about a month or so after that. But Michael Hayden, who was the former director of the NSA, director of the CIA, came back and said, shame on Ron Wyden. He and all the senators there knew that James Clapper was spying on everybody. He shouldn't have asked him that question. He shouldn't have put him on the spot and had him lie before the Senate. That's the mentality. When somebody breaks the law in Washington, they get angry with the person who exposes it, not with the person who breaks the law. Now, he comes on with Jake Tapper, and this is what Clapper told Tapper yesterday.
I think in many ways our institutions are under assault, both externally, and that's the big news here is the Russian interference in our election system. And I think as well our institutions are under assault internally.
Yeah, they're being attacked internally. And so Tapper says, internally? How? From the president? And he says, exactly. And then Tapper says, because he's firing the checks and balances, firing the checks and balances. No, he's not firing the checks and balances. He fired somebody who worked for him in the executive branch. Clapper, though, comes back and says, well, I think you know, the founding fathers had a system of 3 co-equal branches of government and a built-in system of checks and balances, and I feel as though that is under assault and that is being eroded. Actually, the Department of Justice, as well as the NSA, the CIA, those organizations are under the executive branch. This is not a checks and balances issue. And actually what these people believe is that there really has been a coup against the permanently entrenched, unelected, unaccountable, unconstitutional actions of this bureaucracy that thinks that nobody can take them out of office. That's one of the reasons why I was very happy to see this done. But what is being forgotten, and we see the quotes from the people who are attacking Trump, like last week we saw Jeffrey Toobin, who went on with Don Lemon. They talked a great deal about Jeffrey Toobin's comments. He said, this action will disgrace Trump's memory for as long as the presidency is remembered. You know, apocryphal things like that, talking about Nixon's Tuesday night massacre and so forth. But on the same program, we had Harvard lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and he disagreed with him. He said, should Comey be the director of the FBI? The answer to that is no. He said he had called earlier for Comey to resign. He said he lost his credibility. A lot of this is his fault. Then he goes on to ask, the second question is, should it be the president of the United States who makes the decision to fire him? Well, not while he's under an investigation, but it is the president's choice to fire him if he wishes, because the FBI is in the under the executive branch, under the Department of Justice. And then he goes on to say, we need to take a look at who he appoints next, and we will take a look at that. But of course, that is the issue. Can you fire a guy who acts like J. Edgar Hoover, that puts everybody under investigation? You know, let's remember J. Edgar Hoover. Remember, he was the guy that Nixon said, we have on our hands here a man who will pull down the temple with him, including me. We had Harry Truman, who said, we want no Gestapo or secret police. The FBI is trending in that direction under J. Edgar Hoover. They're dabbling in the sex life scandals and in plain blackmail. Edgar Hoover would give his right eye to take over, and all congressmen and senators are afraid of him. Did he create the NSA? Did Harry Truman create the NSA by executive order as a check against this kind of abuse of power by J. Edgar Hoover? You know, back in September, Politico, he was the public enemy number one, Comey was, of the left, of the Democrats. And back in September, Politico, who hated Trump, wrote The Case Against James Comey, a very lengthy article. The subtitle was, Not Since Hoover Has an FBI Director Shown Such a Lack of Accountability. But now this guy is the hero of the left because they believe that they can use him to get Trump somehow. And this is what they said at the time. They said, with hard, hooded eyes, a pugilistic bearing, J. Edgar Hoover's official portrait glowers, face fixed in a bulldog scowl, down the hallways of the FBI's Washington headquarters. Even the building itself, a crumbling, brutalist cathedral, seems to evoke something of the man, its namesake, who scared 8 presidents from Coolidge to Nixon. And then he says, the FBI's history is divided into 2 distinct epochs. There was Hoover and there was post-Hoover. And he said, after Hoover's death in office, this is a guy who was in office for life. After he left, people took a different path until Comey. And he says there's a growing consensus, he wrote this in September, that Comey has wielded the powers of the directorship more aggressively than anyone since Hoover, to the consternation, even the anger of some of his employees. He says among dozens of current and former Justice Department officials, this realization has given way to a rising sense of alarm that our next president will find Comey just as untouchable as Hoover once was, and perhaps nearly as troublesome. And then they had a quote from a former U.S. Attorney, Special Assistant, Watergate prosecutor, Nick Ackerman. He said, Comey is totally acting inappropriately. There is no question about that. Well, that was then. That was back in September. But now it is the end of democracy, according to those who are spying on us, who are involved in political surveillance. And on Saturday, we had Rand Paul renew calls again for the government to look into the use of the surveillance state for political purposes. He said another senator told him that he was being surveilled by the Obama administration as well. Somebody told that to Rand Paul. He said another senator has told me that as well. He says if Americans are having their government spied on by the opposition party, that would be enormous. That would be far more dangerous than anything we've seen from Russia. And he goes on to say, we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. And it's a very secret world. This is Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, saying we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. But you have to realize, he said, that it is a world so secret, most members of Congress are never allowed. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about who might replace Director Comey. Very frightening, one of the people that's being pushed. We'll be right back.
Infowars has partnered with Defender Body Armor to bring you a new state-of-the-art line of advanced, highly tested body armor from InfoWarsStore.com. Defender Body Armor is certified to protect against all handgun rounds and even armor-piercing FN 5.7 pistol rounds. The secret to Defender Body Armor is its proprietary processing technology that disperses more kinetic energy at a rate higher than any other traditional body armor. using one of the strongest synthetic materials ever created, called ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene. Defender armor is also super compact and lightweight. There's a reason the Department of Defense chose Defender to manufacture their new line of advanced lightweight armor. It works. Defender body armor is made right here in America and has received the highest level ballistic resistance certification from an authorized NIJ ballistic laboratory. Defender body armor is now available through InfoWarsStore.com, so you can defend yourself, your family, and finance the info war against the globalists all at the same time. A total 360 win.
You provided Alex with the caveman.
Well, so we've been formulating this stuff for a while, and we've been getting these different flavors, and I don't know about this one, and so I've been taking that stuff, and I'm an old man. I'm 42. I work out 5 times a week, if not more.
I hear you're okay in jiu-jitsu. That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
No, I'm not. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. But the point is that I have a lot of aches and shoulders, and there's weird joint stuff that I've had issues with for years. And this bone broth, the caveman bone broth, along with our joint formula, has just worked magic for me. And that's just that's just from my personal experience. I think they're great products, and I think if anybody else has those issues, that you should definitely, you owe it to yourself to check it out. If I'm wrong, then hey man, write me a mean letter. But let me tell you, they work for me. And
yeah, they work for me too. We were talking about this earlier. Du and I play basketball, and I'm just now, like for the first time in my life, I'm 27 now. After I play basketball, my knees are barking. Like it's well, but the bone broth and the joint formula, like you just said, you combine those two. I felt the difference immediately. I felt it immediately.
Yeah, and it actually tastes good. Like, I'm really picky, and I will drink it. It tastes good to me. I love chocolate, so I really like the flavor of the caveman. So, if the if the bone broth is really that gross, I would never have known because it tastes really good. And my favorite is the Super Female Vitality. So ladies, get yourself some Super Female Vitality if you haven't already, because it just gets me going. I'll take a whole bunch of that stuff before I go out and do
get it for your wife then too, or girlfriend.
Right? I go and take a bunch of it before I go do man on the street, and I just start running, zipping around, running right into the action. No fear, nothing. So,
well, that's a big primary part about fighting the globalists, is making sure that we stay healthy and stay clear-eyed and stay honest and stay humble. I hope that we do that here at Infowars. We got a lot going on, and we're in the middle of the fight, so we really appreciate it when anybody supports us, either by purchasing our products, or you can even go onto our store and donate. We're doing this by the skin of our teeth. I know it looks like we're in a $1 billion studio, but Alex has never taken 1 cent of borrowed money at all whatsoever. This is all money that's come from you, the listeners. So you have literally built this place, built this place with your compassion, and built this place with the support that you've sent us. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it, because I know we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't have a voice if it wasn't for you. So once again, we got to thank the listeners for their steadfastness in supporting us. And even when we make mistakes, and even when we're not right, and even when we might go a little bit crazy, you guys stick with us, and I appreciate that.
Welcome back. As we went to break, we were talking about Rand Paul and his concern that the Obama administration was spying on political opposition and using the apparatus of the massive surveillance state that we've created in this country. Remember, Watergate, many times people have said it was nothing but a third-rate burglary. This, however, would be a very sophisticated surveillance using the tools of government against political enemies. So Rand Paul says, so when this all comes out, if there are political figures from the opposition party involved in this, being spied on by the Obama administration, it's a story bigger than any of the allegations with regard to Russian collusion. And he's absolutely right. And yet, when we look at the possible people who might be replacing James Comey, the person who keeps coming up to the top is ex-Congressman Mike Rogers. He's now been interviewed for this position at the FBI director. And I say that this is a very concerning situation. This person, in my opinion, is totally unqualified to be put into this position, just as we talked about in the last segment. J. Edgar Hoover, and the way he used the FBI as his own personal espionage agency. And, of course, we know how he spied on Martin Luther King and others, but he spied on all the presidents. He got dirt on all the congressmen and senators and presidents and used that to stay in power, just as we saw James Comey saying, I'm investigating you and I'm investigating you, so you can't fire me because you're under investigation. If you fire me while you're under investigation, now you're guilty of something, just from having those types of allegations. Who is Mike Rogers? Mike Rogers is someone who pushed tirelessly until he got it through, pushed CISPA. It finally went through as CISA. But it was an effort to allow the government to do dragnet surveillance on people, to not push that back, to allow corporations to turn over that information without you, the public, being able to come back at those corporations. They took out the P, but it is all about protecting their corporate partners in espionage, protecting them from being sued by the people that they are spying on, the people whose information they're gathering and collecting for commercial purposes to sell you mouthwash or whatever, but then they turn it over to the government. He pushed a long time. He finally got that through. They did SOPA, ACTA, PIPA, CISPA a couple of times, finally got CISA through. Then he retired. This is a guy who also said about the NSA surveillance, he said, hey, if you don't know they're violating your privacy, they're not violating your privacy. That's the mindset of this guy. We do not want someone like that in the office of the FBI director. Nevertheless, he was endorsed over the weekend by the FBI Agents Association. He had 7 terms in Congress, so this is something that is very worrying. Let's take a look at ransomware, the WannaCry, because that does make me want to cry. But let's take a look at the WannaCry virus, the ransomware that was shutting down people's computers. And of course, I think this is interesting as we move into this. They're now going to do a movie about John McAfee and his episode trying to escape the Belizean government going through Central America. And they're going to get Johnny Depp to play John McAfee. They say it's going to be a dark comedy. They're going to call it King of the Jungle. I think they ought to call it Cyber Pirates of the Caribbean. But it was John McAfee who warned us about the fact that the government, if they were given the keys to iPhones or anything like that, they would not protect it. It would go out in the wild. And this was before we saw this information being released about the hacking tools that they were keeping together. And again, it looks like they're setting this up to blame WikiLeaks. We need to remember what WikiLeaks' role in this was. WikiLeaks acted as a whistleblower. They said, these are out there. They've been stolen. They've been already put on the web. We're going to show you the manuals to show you, the public, how you're being spied on. And we will work with any of the companies that are involved with this. And some of them did contact WikiLeaks. Some of them, like Cisco, did. A lot of companies were not very interested in fixing these vulnerabilities. Now they're starting to try to cover their butt. And so we see Microsoft calling out the NSA, said, you're the problem for stockpiling vulnerabilities. Yes, they are the problem for doing that. But it goes beyond that. And some blame is to be put on the people who did not update their software as well. Some of these things were fixed. Some others were not fixed. Microsoft says governments should report software vulnerabilities instead of collecting them. Yeah, obviously. This was pointed out by WikiLeaks, saying that they were dragging their feet at the time, said that Google and other people who had a lot of government contracts were dragging their feet. But Microsoft says this is an emerging pattern. We have seen vulnerabilities stored by the CIA show up on WikiLeaks. See, that's where they're trying to throw this at WikiLeaks. And now this vulnerability stolen from the NSA has affected customers around the world. You have to understand that WikiLeaks' role in this was that of a white hat hacker. They didn't do the hacking, but they told these companies, look, these are discovered vulnerabilities. You need to fix them. If they don't fix them, if the users don't fix them, it's not WikiLeaks' fault. They're the ones trying to tell people what to do. Microsoft went on to say that this represents a completely unintended but disconcerting link between the two most serious forms of cybersecurity threats in the world: nation-state action and organized criminal action. And these two are not as separate as you might want to believe. When we talk about nation-state action and we talk about organized criminal action, of course, this was a ransomware. It may have come from a nation-state. We don't know. It's too difficult to find out where that is coming from. But I think we need to start looking at these cybersecurity threats along the lines of the concern that we have about nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. When our government creates these types of weapons, then we understand that these things can get out of control and they can create massive damage. We've been lulled into a kind of complacency by what did not happen with Y2K. But that was 17 years ago. We have a far more dependent infrastructure, dependent on more and more sophisticated computer programs today. And now we have seen this happening. They say that, as Microsoft is saying, this is an equivalent scenario to a conventional weapon that would be the U.S. military having some of its Tomahawk missiles stolen. Yes, it is a weapon, and it will be used like a weapon. And if we look at the damage that was done, we have 29,000 Chinese institutions hit by this cyber attack. They say that about 15% of internet protocol addresses were attacked within China, that it's created chaos in 150 countries. It's paralyzed computers that run Britain's hospital network, Germany's national railway, other companies, other government agencies worldwide. And many of them do not want to confess that they had a problem with this because they don't want to look like they are incompetent. And of course, Putin is out there now saying malware created by intelligence services can backfire on its creators. So again, think about what is going to happen as we go farther and farther into this dependency on the Internet of Things, bring our transportation into the Internet of Things. And I've talked about this multiple times, the fact that high-tech cars can be hacked. And we've seen this demonstrated over and over again. They can be hacked. They can be turned into terrorist vehicles, running people down. And they're going to use the actual terrorist attacks that have been carried out by people driving trucks. They're going to use that as an excuse to take you out of the car. Everything is an excuse to take you out of the car, to destroy your freedom of movement. Will the government do a kind of ransomware on your freedoms? Will they tell you that you cannot travel until you pay them this fine that they've assessed to you, or this income tax bill that they have assessed to you? Will they tax and track your every movement? Of course they will. We see today an article that was on the Drudge Report coming out of Australia, the death spiral for cars. By 2030, you probably won't own one. And I would add to this, you probably won't own anything else either. Your home, if they have their way, they will take all of this from you. They want you to be a permanent renter to them. And we've seen this types of things done in cities for so long. We've seen buses tried. We've seen light rail tried. Why are they so dependent on doing this? It's because they want control over your life. And the corporations want the profits. And so they say in this article today, the provision of this service may come virtually free, or it may be provided by a corporate sponsorship. Imagine, for instance, paying a token sum for a ride into town after buying a latte for $4.50, or getting a free ride because the local government has decided to make transport easier. It's this kind of Pollyanna marketing, the same kind of stuff that used to tell us that nuclear power was going to be so cheap you wouldn't even meter it. But they are selling us this naive Pollyanna view of the future. This is being sold to us by corporations and by governments. And if we come in and we look at the fact that they're really trying to just turn us into renters, that they're trying to take control of our lives, to watch us, everything that we do, if we point that out, if we point out the dystopian possibilities with this, if we point out their corporate greed, if we point out the undying thirst of government for control, then we are called conspiracy theorists. We're called paranoid. And yet they can sell us this kind of Pollyanna vision of the future in the face of these cyber attacks, and nobody questions it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Electrify your day with Secret 12. It's like lightning in a bottle. We all have days in which we just can't seem to perform at the level we'd like to. Infowars Live Secret 12 is designed to naturally energize your body and mind with 2 great tasting and super high quality forms of vitamin B12. Proper vitamin and nutrient intake is essential to keep your body functioning at optimum levels. The reality is, it's hard to take in the proper amount of vitamins we need each day with our modern diets. Secret 12 by Infowars Live is an easy way to naturally upgrade your vitamin B12 intake and support your body's natural systems. It pairs 2 forms of vitamin B12 into one explosive formula. Vitamin B12 supports healthy energy levels through red blood cell formation and aiding in the body's natural processes, but it also assists with many other functions of the body. Electrify your mind and body and take your health to the next level. Experience the power of Secret 12 at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out. We have the new product at InfoWarsLife.com, BioTrue Selenium.
We've had so many requests over the years for selenium, and just recently, we were able to source a certified organic, bioavailable selenium from mustard seed extract. When you take selenium in the body, it actually benefits the detoxification systems in your body. It helps balance the thyroid gland. It helps detoxify.
Selenium is another one of those absolute must-haves.
The highest concentration of selenium is in the thyroid gland, but it's actually used all over the body. As a matter of fact, there's 25 genes in the body that are directly dependent upon selenium. So it really is a all-around nutrient that everybody really needs.
I'm taking it now every day. This is so key. BioTrue Selenium is the product, the best selenium that we could bring you. We believe it's the best out there at a very, very low price. Exclusively available at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. We're selling a product, DNA Force, that is the very best nutraceutical that we can produce. Dr. Group, you took years for you to develop DNA Force for us.
It's been something that I've been working on for a long time, Alex, because I think it's very, very important. What the aging process is when the cell replicates, we lose a little bit of our telomeres. Telomeres are the little cups on the end of our chromosomes.
And when it runs out, you start dying.
We chose the PQQ because it has over 175 different clinical trials. It's one of the most effective substances in the world. It works like an antioxidant. It works to repair nerve growth factor.
So this is a formula to deliver the maximum amount. It's in powder form.
We have so many 5-star reviews. I take this. This is the product that I take.
InfoWarsLife.com, and the profit we make, we fight the globals. We fight the New World Order. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
You may have forgotten about the IRS versus the Tea Party. And, of course, the Justice Department did forget about that under Barack Obama. But Judicial Watch did not. They started a Freedom of Information lawsuit, and they are pursuing that lawsuit. And as the information starts to come out of Cincinnati where this is happening, today, or actually it was on Friday, but today a lot of the national press is picking up the fact that IRS executives are saying our lives are at risk in this Tea Party case. What they're saying is, if we told you what we have done to you, you would want to physically harm us. You would want to kill us. That's the headline from USA Today. Today, a judge has ruled that there was strong showing that the IRS had a bias against Tea Party groups. Today, details about Tea Party bias claims against the IRS could remain secret because current and former agency officials say their lives are in danger if they publicly testify about the case. An attorney for the Tea Party group said he's not permitted to discuss the brief he filed under seal, but said the allegations against the IRS are serious and the public has a right to know what happened. Yes, we do. He says, generally, our position is that it's a matter of great public interest, and there is no legal basis for sealing the depositions or the arguments about whether the depositions should be sealed. So they even want to seal the arguments about whether or not the depositions should be sealed. This is how secretive our government has become. And again, it's how politicized they've become. It's how the bureaucracy feels that they can do anything to the rest of us. And as I said earlier, they're now coming out of the closet very defiantly as well. Defiantly saying we can use our position here in a political way to attack our political opponents and violate the law, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. He went on to say this. They said, allowing public dissemination would likely lead to media coverage that may subject both individuals to the very harms they seek a protective order to avoid. So they're saying if you tell people about it, they're going to want to kill us. And if we go back and look at November last year, as this case was starting up, we had the judge in Cincinnati ruled that there was a strong showing that the agency had discriminated against conservative groups because of their political stances. And the Kansas City-based lawyer who is working for Judicial Watch said, "We are suing in part for what we think is a violation of our First Amendment right to free speech, and we feel this ruling gives us that." See, this is very similar to the Johnson Amendment and the idea that the IRS would be used as a political weapon to shut up churches that are talking about a political viewpoint, a conservative political viewpoint, because we know that churches who talk about it from a liberal standpoint, they can endorse candidates, they can have candidates speak at their churches, but don't do that if you're a conservative church. That was the implied threat. So when we look at these nonprofit organizations, the real issue there is that we would set up a system where the government could basically use the threat of shutting down your operation if you talked about politics. And in the case of the Johnson Amendment, it is both religious exercise and political speech that are being shut down. But let's take a look at what happened just about 2 months ago. We had the IRS at that point in time admitted that they had 7,000 unreleased documents relating to their persecution of Tea Party, targeting of the Tea Party. They told the court they'd recently identified about 7,000 documents that could contain information on how the agency targeted tax-exempt applications of Tea Party organizations or other conservative political groups dating back to 2010. But the IRS in a document would not commit to a timeline for releasing the documents. See, they've had this situation where they said before, the dog ate my homework, I don't have the records, I lost them, an excuse that the IRS would never accept from you, the taxpayer. And then they come out and say, well, now I found them, but I don't know when I'll ever turn them over to you. This is the politicization of this organization. And we have to understand that as the Obama administration said, we're not going to pursue this, we don't see anything to do here. And they did not fire John Koskinen, who is the IRS commissioner, and he has still not been fired by Attorney General Sessions. And so we have a congressman saying Attorney General Sessions should review Lois Lerner's IRS targeting. He should fire John Koskinen. They should prosecute Lois Lerner. He says Attorney General Jeff Sessions should re-examine the case of former IRS Division Chief Lois Lerner, accused of targeting Tea Party groups, says Peter Roskam, chairman of the Ways and Means Tax Policy Subcommittee. He said, quote, "We believe that she targeted people based on their political philosophy, which is a crime. Which is a crime." See, this is what Rand Paul was saying. He said, I've been told that I was surveilled by the national security apparatus, that they unveiled my name, that they did it to other senators as well as to the Trump people. These are crimes. This is the government apparatus being used as a banana republic would be using them. He said, secondly, we believe that she has lied to the Inspector General when that was being investigated. He said, we think it's important that the Justice Department thoroughly review it because, in our view, the Obama administration was dismissive. It just dismissed it out of hand, never took it seriously, which is a mistake. Yeah, there's one set of rules for us and a different set of rules for them.
I'm going to expand the definition of lobbyists so we close all the loopholes that former government officials use by labeling themselves consultants, advisors, all of these different things, and they get away with murder. Not going to happen. I'm going to issue a lifetime ban against senior executive branch officials lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. We're going to drain the swamp of corruption.
President Donald Trump intends on draining the swamp, knowing full well who they are. Those swamp things, like the scum that they are, have begun rising to the top. James Clapper, former director of national intelligence, aka the Deep State, a man that lied to Congress about the violation of the rights of every American citizen, is somehow a credible spokesperson presented to a supposed gullible America on the Mockingbird media circuit?
I think in many ways our institutions are under assault, both externally, and that's the big news here is the Russian interference in our election system. And I think as well our institutions are under assault internally.
Internally from the president?
Exactly.
Meanwhile, Maxine Waters, a race-baiting Trump troll, incoherently lunges with walnut-brained zeal at the prospect of continuing the California Cloward and Piven divide-and-conquer scheme to her hordes of anti-white, anti-American supporters.
Go back to Europe! Go back to Europe! This guy right here needs to go back to Europe, back to England. You can tell in Irish too. That's where you gotta go back.
I'm not from England.
Yes, your ancestry's from? Or
no.
You can tell you're a little British, a little Eastern European.
No.
That's where you should go back. Go back to where you're from. Pilgrim.
58 people died. Many more were gravely injured, including a man called Reginald Denny. He was a truck driver who happened to be at the wrong intersection at the wrong time, and more than anything, the wrong color. Because of his race, Denny was pulled from his truck and smashed in the head with a cinder block until he sustained brain damage. It was a hate crime if there ever was one. It all happened on videotape. A helicopter caught it, and it happened in Maxine Waters' city. But she did not denounce the attack. On the contrary, she all but endorsed the attack. The leader of the mob that nearly murdered Reginald Denny was called Damian Williams. Now, Maxine Waters visited Damian Williams' mother to offer her support. Williams was sent to prison on a single felony charge of mayhem, but when his accomplices got off, Waters joined in the celebration. Damian Williams was released a few years later and went on to murder somebody else in 2000. He's still in prison today. But Waters did not learn a thing from the experience. She went on to describe the LA race riots as, quote, a rebellion, and in ways understandable, including apparently the part about smashing people's brains in for being the wrong color.
So if Hillary Clinton had won the White House, would you have recommended that she fire FBI Director James Comey?
Well, let me tell you something. If she had won the White House, I believe that given what he did to her and what he tried to do, she should have fired him, yes.
So she should have fired him, but he shouldn't have fired him. This is why I'm confused.
No, you're not confused. There are those who think that he, in some ways, has some connections to what is going on in the Ukraine and perhaps in Russia itself.
I've not seen any evidence produced of that. I've encountered that.
If the criminals in D.C. were smart, they would contain maximum overdrive Maxine before the swamp's floodgates burst.
We have begun to drain the swamp of government corruption by imposing a 5-year ban on lobbying by executive branch officials and a lifetime ban. Thank you.
John Down for Infowars.com.
Alex Jones here with a very important news update to anybody out there that wants to be prepared. But it goes beyond being prepared. Our bodies absolutely must have the good halogen iodine or we will die. And you look at all of the thyroid problems and all the people that don't have energy and that have all sorts of hormone problems. And from my research and a lot of just mainline research, it leads back to iodine over and over and over again. It's as important as vitamin C. If you don't get iodine, you die. But most people are just deficient, so they're low energy, they're sick. You got to have iodine in your body so that your body can produce the hormones you need. It is the base to so many things. And since I got into iodine 4 years ago, we've helped change the entire paradigm by developing and bringing to the public deep earth crystals from 7,000 to 12,000 feet of the purest iodine available. Other iodine comes from the ocean or from other byproducts of chemical facilities, and it's tainted. It's bound. It's not absorbable. I tried it. And I had incredible effects even with dirty iodine because the body needs it. When you don't have iodine, it absorbs the chlorine, the fluoride, and all these other bad halogens. Do yourself and your family a favor and check out the importance of iodine for yourself. I think you're going to be blown away. And whatever you do, support the broadcast and get a bottle of Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2. Also consult your physician because if you've been deficient in it or have other issues, it can have some dramatic effects. As for me and most folks I talk to, it's been a game changer in the positive column, but still consult your physician because iodine is no joke. It's a key building block of the body. And if you haven't had it for a long time and suddenly have it, some folks say they've experienced things like a detoxing effect and things like like that. You've got to have vitamin C. You've got to have iodine to live. You've got to have water to live. Iodine is key. You must have it. But consult your physician first before you get powerful Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2 at InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free. We can answer your questions, 888-253-3139.
What brings you out here today?
Well, it's a Mother's Day, first of all, and SB 4 needs to end. Mexico is our neighbor. These are our friends and neighbors, and I feel it's unconstitutional, illegal, immoral roundup of human beings. I think that it's unethical, and it's fake safety, and the guys are protecting us. All they need to get a warrant. Huh?
The fake news.
Yes, it's fake news.
There are a lot of police out here today during this SB4 march on Sunday. Watch out. Watch out, watch out. Well, keep your camera on them, because these people are up to no good. This girl keeps bumping into you. What's your problem, ma'am? Do you think you should be out here protesting for more efficient ways to legally immigrate? Do you think that we should fix the current immigration system so that it makes it easier for people to legally immigrate, go through the classes, and follow the proper system so they don't get taken advantage of by big corporations and get paid lower wages?
Se puede, se puede, se puede, se puede.
So it looks like you want to talk to us because you keep like standing right by us. So
SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Are you with Alex Jones?
Yes.
Okay, you can eliminate me. You can eliminate my what I said, please. Okay?
Okay. Here's the. Okay, so people are freaking out. They're freaking out.
SB4 has got to go.
So these people are aware that we're with Infowars, and they're kind of just sticking around us. So we have a bunch of people telling everyone to not talk to us.
Take away my film that you did of me.
Can't.
Take it away.
For the very same reason you're here, I can't.
All right.
Here's the reality. When people do protests, they go out to talk about issues, talk about their cause, raise awareness.
This is speaking volumes right
We don't edit it.
Right now we're speaking volumes.
Bullshit. No. Bullshit. We don't edit it to say anything that you don't say.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Keep talking, Tony. What? Keep it positive. They want to get you angry. We're not here to get you.
We're not even trying to be around you guys. You guys keep sticking around us. So see, we try to get away, and look, this guy wants to stick right by us. We've got a stalker.
SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. SB4 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho.
Looks like these events always have a group of handlers. They're like event organizers that they follow you around, and they make sure that you don't have any dialogue or discussion with any. Watch out, stop. People keep doing this where they want to stop right in front of where he's walking. They're all wearing red. They're being used for a communist agenda. It seems like the commies have linked up with these organizers that are anti-deportation.
Separation of powers and local control. This is what this lie is really about. They literally don't even define what sanctuary cities are. This is, please look at my side. Please look at my side. They're requiring the state to subsidize. They're requiring the state to subsidize a federal agency. What Constitution if the separation of powers is out the window. I love your show.
Okay, thanks. At least that girl's smart, and she realizes that talking to the press is the best way to get out your message. There's this guy again who literally follows us around and says, "Don't talk to Infowars. You're going to be a star, man." So why don't you at least tell people what you're about, so people don't just think you're some crazy guy that likes to follow people around. All right. Well, he had his chance to speak. Yeah.
I have a dream. Tengo un sueño. Martin Luther King. He died in my parish.
Propaganda. They're not real news. Don't talk to them. They're going to skew your message. Don't talk to them. They're not real news.
That's not true. That's not true. Who's telling you this? Who's telling you this?
Infowars is propaganda.
Who's telling you this?
Infowars is propaganda. They're not real news.
You're going to cause people to trip. You're the one who's stalking us and following us around. So who's telling you that?
It's the known fact. All over the media. I was a journalist. So I know.
Careful, guys. You're going to cause people.
It's not a known fact, and if you actually look at our videos, we don't edit you to say anything that you aren't saying.
Walk with us!
Walk with us! Walk with us! Walk with us! Walk with us!
Walk with us!
Viva la raza! Viva la raza! So tell them we are the immigrants.
Okay, so we got people blocking us now. You can just put it in front of me. Gavin, just put it on me. We've got people chasing us around and trying to block our camera lens view.
You don't have a right.
You don't have a right to do that.
First Amendment, ma'am.
Yeah, you don't have a right to do that.
You do not have a right. I've got a First Amendment.
Just as you do. You're out here voicing yours. So since you want to be in front of the camera, could you go to any other country and not be deported if you didn't go here legally?
I have a First Amendment.
Do you realize if you guys just ignored us?
Just ignore them. Just ignore them.
Yeah, you're not ignoring us.
Got a First Amendment, dude.
Yeah.
Just leave them straight up.
Because you know they're going to blow it out of proportion.
They're not going to blow anything. When you're doing this, we don't have to.
You guys are just giving us a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you're doing.
When you could actually express your grievances and talk with us, which is why we're here.
Oh, yeah. It looks like you guys are really unbiased. Yeah.
You're the one doing what you're doing.
You're right. I am doing what I'm doing.
So
you're doing what you're doing, so go have fun with it. So go have fun.
Stalker guy's back. I'm not against immigration, legal immigration. Neither is Alex Jones, neither is Donald Trump, neither are mostly all of their supporters. We want people to legally immigrate, go through the proper vetting process, go through the process of learning about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, so that they have equal protection under the law and the same rights that we do, and that they don't get taken advantage of by political groups like the communists who want to use them for their own political agenda. But they don't know any better because they were never taught about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what rights Americans have here. So it makes them vulnerable to be used by other political groups. And that's why Democrats like Obama and Hillary Clinton want them to come here so they can simply be used and extorted. It's the same reason why big corporations want them to come here, so they can use them and exploit them for cheap labor. So it's pretty crazy to see, guys, that any what we do, people are going to try to block us having conversations because they don't want their followers to be red-pilled. So this is Millie Weaver signing off for Infowars.com.
Well, that's it for tonight's news. Thank you for joining us at the Infowars Nightly News. Join us again tomorrow night at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
And all you ISIS people threatening us, hey, we're not a French newspaper. Okay? We got people that have taken your asses out in this building right now. We're armed to the teeth, and we're not scared. You got that, you sons of bitches? This is Texas. You want to threaten me, you can go straight to hell. You understand that?
Never water yourself down just because someone can't handle you at 100 proof. It's the Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
I am very proud to announce the introduction of the highest quality Infowars Biome Defense probiotic. We wanted to come out with the largest spectrum of high quality known probiotics that have been proven to improve overall digestion and health and detoxification in the body. Biome Defense is an exclusive blend of 50 billion live and active cultures from over 23 different probiotic strains that are known to support digestion and intestinal function. Our researchers are confident that we have been able to develop what will be the leading probiotic on the market. Secure your Biome Defense in ultra strength or regular strength at InfoWarsLife.com today and get started supporting your digestive system naturally. We've been testing this formula for years, but this is the limited first run to the public, so please take advantage of it today. Support your own health and support the InfoWar.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Monday, May 15th, 2017. Here are top stories.